Howdy, Roadrunners! Welcome to the latest episode of the DET 42 podcast. Today, our guest is Major Weiand, our newest instructor at DET 42. Today, during the podcast, we're going to go over some of your background, such as like your educational history and where you commissioned out of. We're going to go into your career in the Air Force, so security forces, and then we're going to end it with talking about some of your expectations and goals as a new AFRC instructor.
Sweet.
So,
let's do this.
To start, what is your commissioning source?
So I was actually ROTC grad, like y'all will be, commissioned out of the University of South Florida, so Detachment 158. And I was a AS-250. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, so I was a junior in college when I joined ROTC. So yeah, it's been great.
So did you do a 250? That means you would have done a 2-year program or a 3-year program?
I did a 2.5 year.
Okay.
And my last semester was just straight ROTC, nothing else. So I worked.
Okay. So obviously, whenever you commissioned as a security forces officer.
I did.
Was that your first choice as a career in the Air Force?
So, not gonna lie, I applied for OSI, so Office of Special Investigations, and they chose 2 people nationwide. I wasn't one of them. My mentor, a Cadre member, he was prior enlisted security forces, and I just really gravitated towards his personality. So I ended up just putting security forces on my, what is it called, the form?
Dream sheet?
My dream sheet. I'm used to dream sheet being, your bases that you want to go to. So yeah, my dream sheet was just security forces, and I was like, if I didn't get it, then I don't care where I go. I got it, so I was kind of lucky there.
So I don't know too much about it. What are the main differences between OSI and security forces? Because in my mind, they're kind of similar. So
with OSI, you don't have as many airmen right off the bat. You usually have really small sections. It's more federal, so you'll do interrogations or interviews with, drug, the more major crimes, so drug, pedophilia, all that other stuff. Whereas we are out there, we are the cops of the Air Force. You can probably associate OSI more, if you want to do a 3-letter agency, the FBI of the Air Force, and the security forces is more the San Antonio PD side of the Air Force. So we do the law enforcement. Depending where we're at, we're kind of a career field with many different avenues that we can go. We can do air-based defense, so like in Korea. We can do security, meaning nuclear security, and we can do law enforcement, so basic, I'm going to pull you over because you ran a stop sign, or a domestic, anything like that.
So then going into security forces, and I was specifically asked to ask about your first assignment and just some of the unique features of being security forces, such as like the early leadership opportunities and the unique job training. Is there anything you can speak on that?
So my first base was actually Del Rio, Texas. It's a pilot training base. So I was around a lot of LTs who were awaiting pilot training or going through training. Very familiar. I learned a lot about the flying aspect. Drop nights, I was not familiar with what that meant, but I quickly knew what that meant when I was responding to the officer club for different shenanigans. So it was a good time down there. Very small unit. I was an overage, so I was able to do more stuff, so to speak, because I didn't have a specific place in the unit. I was just all over the place. My training was partially at Lackland here. So security forces, like Lackland, San Antonio is the mecca for security forces. Once you leave, you're most likely going to come back several times throughout your career. So I was here at Lackland for a little bit, but mainly at Camp Bullis. We did about 2.5 months out in the field at Bullis. So in the heat of summer, I was there doing mission scenarios with a group of, I want to say 40 of us, about 2 or 3 foreign individuals, and the rest were just different walks of life, reservists, folks who had been in prior enlisted, and just, it was great. What else did you ask?
So I asked about. So we've heard from some of our alumni, specifically a cadet commission last year, and he mentioned that like, there's some unique things to being security forces, as in like your first assignment, you're most likely going to already be a flight commander with several, dozens of people under you, as well as like a unique form of like job training where you first go to your first base, do like hands-on development, and then go to your tech school. So is that like pretty universal or?
So it depends. Like I said, I was an overage at my first base. I was still a lieutenant when I PCS'd or moved to Wyoming, so nuke security. That's where I had flights under me. And then I became the operations officer where I had 4 flights under me as a first lieutenant, which is over 200, 300 airmen. So yes, as security forces, you're going to be leading lots of airmen right off the bat. Even when I was at Del Rio, I still had a good group of people. Maybe it wasn't 60 airmen, but I still had a good group of 10, 15 people mixed with civilians. And civilians is a whole other ball field when it comes to the leadership aspect. As far as I think they switched it because before you would commission and then they would give you a slot to go into training. So when I commissioned, I went to a PME that they no longer have in the Air Force, a professional military education. They took it out of the Air Force. But I went to that and I was supposed to go to my training at Camp Bullis right after that. And found out I was pregnant with my daughter, so I delayed for a year, and I went the following year. And throughout the years, I believe they've decided to go that route, have you do more on-the-job training. So when you go to I call it field training because it's out in the field, but when you go to your security forces training, you are more prepared for what they're going to throw at you. It is a little intense.
So then, settling into your career fields in the security forces, did you feel that your major like helped at all, or while getting into the career field, did you feel that there were any majors that helped settling into it?
So, having been in for quite a bit of security forces, I've run into LTs, officers who have degrees in all different backgrounds. I had a lieutenant in Minot who was a geneticist as a civilian, who went the OTS route. I had a civilian who worked at Raytheon and went the OTS route. It's just, there's so many different career fields, degrees that you can go into in this career field. At the end of the day, your major may help. I was a criminologist or a criminology major. But common sense is really the big thing, being able to react under pressure and just being able to take into consideration all the circumstances, the situations you're going to run into. Your degree, yeah, it may help, it may not, but really it's more so your common sense and your ability to react. So.
Okay. It's more like hands-on, like what they do in the Air Force, like hands-on, help you learn while participating. So during your time as security forces, obviously it's a very universal career in the Air Force. You can, from what I've heard, you can go basically anywhere.
Absolutely.
Are there any unique experiences that you've been able to experience due to being in the career field that are maybe exclusive or just like more easily to obtain due to being in the position?
Not really. So again, they've changed things now, but when I joined, most officers that I know moved every 2 years. So I've been to a base every 2 years on the dot. I'd be somewhere different. I volunteered for Korea for a 2-year assignment, so I was on, and that's probably one of my favorite assignments. Was Korea. I would absolutely push y'all to put Korea or somewhere in the Pacific on your slot because it was an amazing place, great people, great culture. I was a single parent there, so my daughter went to a Korean daycare where they spoke to her in Korean, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but they went through everything. She learned Korean, she learned how to write. It was great. So although not quite unique, anyone can really go there. That is just one of the places I was able to go to, because otherwise I was stuck at nuclear bases, and what they say about nuclear, it's very, very rare that you deploy from a nuclear base, and unfortunately that's where I've been most of my career. So they consider Korea a short tour, so I was able to spread my wings and go somewhere outside the States.
So then is it like once you're attached to like a nuclear base for that mission, are you like, is it most likely you're going to be attached to that for as long as you're in the Air Force, or?
A lot of changes. So the nuclear bases provide a lot of experience for lieutenants. So what AFPC, what they're trying to do with new lieutenants who are security forces officers, they're trying to push them more towards nuclear bases and keep them at their first base for 3 years. The reason being is that nuke bases just have such a diverse, it can be law enforcement or it can be nuclear security. You just have a lot of area where you can just dabble in as a lieutenant, which really grows you as a person and as a leader. You have a lot of airmen there who are in your flight, so definitely nuclear bases is a unique experience in and of itself. Really, you're in the cold and you're suffering together, right? So there's that aspect of it. And they say when you go nuclear, you get the nuke stink on you. That means you're always going to end up going back. So when I go command, I'll probably end up going back to a nuclear base. Knock on wood, I don't know. That's what they say, so we'll see. And but they've actually done stuff for the enlisted where they used to be stuck at a nuclear base for years, could be 10 years before they're able to move. So now they have every 4 years they will have to move them. So things constantly evolving. So good for the good.
I've never heard of that before. The nuke stink. I've never heard of that.
Stink. Yep.
So then, during your time in the career field, are there any important lessons that you learned, maybe like whenever you first joined or through the service, that really helped you in that career field, and potentially, if any cadets are interested in being in it, would give them an advantage towards being successful in the career?
I would say I've always been open-minded. So ever since I was a little kid, I was able to gravitate more towards adults. I would just be in the conversations. I'm surprised they didn't kick me away. So going into my first base and going to every assignment, just knowing that you don't know anything, right? You may know something, but I always go in saying, I don't know anything. Let me rely on the people who have the experience. So as a flight commander, you have a senior NCO, a master sergeant, most likely, who is your right-hand person. And you would turn to them for anything. And they help build and get, make you confident, help you become more confident in becoming a flight commander and just leading. Definitely keep an open mind is what I would say. Absolutely. Network, get to know people around the base. As a security forces officer, knowing who I could call at civil engineering if something was going wrong with the barriers, or if I needed help with whatever, snowplow, I can be like, hey, how are you? Yeah, I'll get you a donut if you want to come out and help me out. So just networking. There is, I'm sidebarring a little bit, there is normally at bases company grade officer councils. Highly suggest that you go, even if it's just to meet people from around the base, other lieutenants, other captains. I tell you, that's so valuable for you to have their numbers, to be able to pick up the phone and call them, regardless of what career field you go into. I will say that is definitely one thing that I would suggest to everybody who wants to go into security forces or anything in general, really. So.
And then finally, the last question touching on the security forces. Is there any advice you could give to cadets who were interested in looking to compete for a slot for security forces? Maybe some like steps they can take ahead of time to prepare them for it and become more competitive for it?
I wish I knew how they selected cadets for security forces. I will say that security forces is one of the undermanned career fields for officers in the Air Force. So it's very likely that if you put it down, you probably may get it. But also maintenance is undermanned, and I believe personnelists are undermanned. So just keep that in mind. They'll put you where they need you to go. However, if you are truly interested in security forces, I would suggest keep up with your physical strength, just overall physique. Not physique. I mean, yeah, you're leading from the front. You want to look good in uniform, yes. But you're going to be going through a lot of physical stuff at Camp Bullis and training. Again, definitely keep an open mind and be willing to learn, because confidence is definitely something that will play a big role in how you react to situations. So definitely for security forces, be confident, speak out, get out of your comfort zone. You won't grow if you stay in your comfort zone.
So then, like, just what you said, would you say, like, comparatively, obviously it's like physically exhausting, but is it like a relatively hands-on career field in the Air Force?
So as a lieutenant, yes, because you are on patrol with your airmen, you're going out, you're doing post checks, and really it's as physical as you make it. A lot of officers may just not get out and do stuff. I would actually go out there and check ID cards and get with my airmen, have them teach me. I would go out there, do trainings with them, have them teach me how to throw spike strips. Even though I knew how to throw spike strips, it's just like, hey, show me how you do it. And just getting dirty with them. When I was in Korea, it was building the defensive fighting positions, so it's DFPs, filling sandbags, putting them out there. Really, it's as hands-on as you want to be. Honestly, in any career field as an officer, as you go up in rank, you're more so behind a desk, doing admin, doing the planning, strategic planning, which is important, but you don't want to lose the interaction that you have with your airmen. So I was always out there. I love talking. I just love talking, so I'll go out there and randomly talk to people.
Okay. So next, I want to talk a little bit about you being an AFRTC instructor. Firstly, what made you interested in becoming one in the first place, and what was the process like towards applying and interviewing and being selected for the position?
I think as soon as I commissioned, I knew I wanted to come back. I had such a great experience in ROTC myself. My mentor, the Cadre, was just phenomenal at my detachment, and I knew as I progressed in my career that I would eventually want to go back. I actually tried to apply for a hot jobs. It's called the hot jobs listing. They have a list of everything that needs an immediate fill, and I applied for ROTC. And I got an email back saying, hey, we got Korea, or IUD. Which one do you want to go to instead? So that's when I went to Korea. 4 or 5 years later, here I am at Lackland at the Security Forces Center, and the opportunity came up again. It's a whole other process now, where it's a special duty, where it's more selective. So I actually was up for command and up for this. I decided that I would push command to the side because I really, really, really wanted to come back to ROTC and mentor and teach cadets. So everything is on Talent Marketplace. I don't know if y'all heard of that. So when you start going, when you commission and start figuring out where you want to go next, Talent Marketplace is where you go into to select your bases. It's very transparent, where people bid on you, right? So your commander has to put in some good words for you. So I put, UTSA, whatever down the line. I even put my old university in Florida. In the interview process, it's all kind of intimidating. You're like, hopefully, they select me. Lieutenant Colonel Rendell and Lieutenant Colonel Hoffman were on the Skype, because it was all via FaceTime or Zoom, and they asked me a ton of questions. And here I am. So hopefully, it was one thing or another. I impressed them in one way, shape, or form. Again, I just love talking, and I'm very passionate about teaching. I've always loved mentoring cadets outside of just the career field stuff, like personal finance, like whatever else I can help them with. So I just feel like it's my niche to go into teaching.
So you mentioned Colonel Rendell. Does that mean the process has been for the past year towards working your way here?
Correct. So I believe the board was up about this time last year is when it was open. So I had to get my 3 letters of recommendation. I had to submit my stuff in the Talent Marketplace. It went up to my commander, and then it went out to whoever, I put in for bids. So they would go in and be like, hey, this person meets qualifications. I have a master's. It's one of the qualifications for here is to have a master's degree. XYZ, let's go and interview them. And from there, whatever process that was here, that process. But it was very selective.
And so were there any difficulties towards adjusting towards the AFRTC instructor life per se?
Not really. So again, I approach every job as if I don't know anything. That way I'm just a sponge and able to just soak it all in. When I first got here, yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking. I didn't know what I was doing, but it's been a couple months, and I just feel like I'm right at home. Really, the people. I always tell people it's either the people, the place, or both. And right now, it's both. The people and the place are just amazing, and y'all are amazing. So, again, I feel right at home.
And so, are there any like lessons from your, say, like your last unit or station that you're taking and hoping to apply towards your time here?
So I was an exec at my last base for the commander. With Security Forces Center, it's a little different. So the commander is in charge of the entire Security Forces enterprise. So it's 38,000 defenders worldwide. So I would constantly have to network with everybody, at different bases. So definitely networking. Admin is huge for ROTC. I should have known, but I didn't. But admin is huge for ROTC. So definitely, the MFRs that y'all are writing, you're all going to continue to write MFRs. You're all going to continue to do PowerPoints. So all that stuff is just continual, and I'm able to apply that here as well. So.
And then going into your first full year as an instructor, are there any like specific goals you want to reach? And adding on to that, what are your expectations for your 200s that you have in class?
Expectation-wise, really I just have them for myself. I want to make sure that I am doing my best to keep and teach y'all the things that I've learned along the way, impart some knowledge both via the curriculum, because there isn't a curriculum I have to follow, but also on the sidelines, like, hey, at Lead Lab is a great opportunity, at PT is a great opportunity to just kind of share some extra stuff that I've learned throughout my years. My expectations for my 200s, oh man, they already know. All right. Step out of your comfort zone. This is the time to learn. This is the time to practice your leadership. Find out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and making sure that you are true to yourself. Don't fake it. I can tell, and your airman will be able to tell if you are faking who you are just to fit some sort of bubble that you think a leader is. A leader is what you are and what you make of it. So again, you won't grow if you stay in your comfort zone, so step out of it and continue to push yourself to become better, accept feedback. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and the feedback is super important, so keep an open mind.
So that's all the questions we had. Just to end it, were there any closing or leaving remarks you wanted to leave with your cadets who will be watching this podcast?
So ROTC is phenomenal. I know when you're in it, there are things that you're like, why are we doing this? But at the end of the day, reach out, get to know your flight mates, get to know the POC, get to know the cadre, build those relationships, because those are things that will last for, I could say, a lifetime, but I am still friends with individuals, cadets from when I was in ROTC. I'm still friends with Cadre when I was in ROTC. Of course, you can't friend them until after you commission. Put that out there. But I still keep in touch with them. They are my mentors. We talk about mentorship. Find a mentor, whether it's your peer or a Cadre member or a family member. At the end of the day, it's the light at the end of the tunnel. You commission. My dad was enlisted. He retired. He gave me my first salute. So think about that stuff. What this is all worth for you. What is the end goal for you? And making my dad proud was probably one of them. So, and of course, leading. So keep that in mind. This is just a short time in your college life, but it's probably one of the most memorable. So enjoy it.
Cool. Thank you for watching this episode of the podcast. Make sure to tune in with us next week, and here we have for our next special guest. So, thanks for watching, Roadrunners. Woo!